Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching the show. I wanted to pop on and talk about the 2020 Science of Regenerative Organic Cannabis Cultivation Conference. I posted last night or yesterday afternoon that unfortunately I'm canceling the Vancouver leg of the tour, and I'm taking responsibility for it. I honestly didn't market well enough up there, and it was hard last year. We didn't have as many people as we needed to pay the bills, and so unfortunately we just have to cancel this one. And I apologize to everyone, to all the speakers and to all the attendees. I know it's a huge letdown to the community up there, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to be organized enough to pull it off. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there, and we can talk about that if anybody's got questions. But what I really wanted to talk about was what's new for this year. We're doing, pretty much the same exact lineup of speakers. And, the first thing that comes to my mind when I see something like that is like, well, why would I go back again? Maybe it's just to see people and connect, and maybe I'll get another couple questions out. But in reality, the reason that we decided to have the same speakers come back is because we were all learning so much together. And individually. Suzanne went off to a couple schools or courses this summer that she was really excited about, and we're excited to hear about. And Wendy did a trip to Korea and has learned a whole new bug killing technique. And so yeah, maybe we should start with that. And I don't know if you guys have even talked about this at all, but it'd be really interesting to hear the dialogue between the two of you. It's Suzanne. It's a Jadam technique, which is an offshoot of Korean natural farming. The background is that it's Master Cho's son saw some things that, and you can go in and correct where I mistake some of this, Wendy. But Master Cho's son saw some things in Korean natural farming that he thought could be done differently, and so he started his own kind of offshoot. And part of that is it's Jadam, and is one of these things that she went over to learn this new tech. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Wendy, and yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually not related with Jadam or KNF.
Oh.
It was interesting. In a way there's similarities and there's definite points on the path, but it was definitely something different, and it's not brand new. So that's the thing that, we went over there, and it was not exactly the trip that we thought it was. So we had a bus full of natural farmers, and Professor Dr. Kim, the guy who is basically producing this product, was very, very light on how we actually use it, how to do it. We saw a lot of farms that use it, and it was a really big deal over there. So in South Korea, they support their farmers amazingly via the government. There's all kinds of subsidies, and it was really mind-blowing at how well we were told that the farmers were being supported. Of course, the reality is you're in Korea, who knows what's really going on. We did notice that there is a lot of restriction on choices that you get to make. But the interesting thing was that after seeing the fifth farm, that it was like, this very, very productive farm, very profitable now. This man, he goes to Germany for some national award in Germany because he is such a good farmer. He has melons he sells for $10 melon. He uses GCM now. And this was like the big thing, was this GCM, which we found out, it took us, he didn't actually even tell us this. We got invited up to, the few of us in the group got invited up to the lab at the university by one of Professor Kim's graduate students. And she brought us up there, and through seeing some of the reports that were on the wall, we found out that GCM is really Bacillus valezensis. I've never pronounced it. We've only seen it written. So
is it G or J?
G. So it stands for gelatinase chitinase microorganism, and he called it something else before that, and he called it something else before that. So he's renamed this bacteria, or this microbe.
Say it again for us so we can all write it down.
Bacillus vallensis, Valenzis, or maybe the Z and the N are switched. I can't quite remember right now. But yeah, it's ends up that, you know, this, and I will tell you, what we saw were monocropped greenhouses. Absolutely. I will also tell you, I've never been in a monocropped greenhouse like that wasn't using gnarly pesticides that was that clean. I mean, it was really surprising. Like the pepper greenhouse, there were a couple white flies, but that was about it in this. I don't even know how big it was, maybe a 32 by 100 or so. And I mean, I was digging deep because I was like, all right, I want to figure out what's going on here. And we were told, the first farms we saw, they were like, okay, these guys use pesticide and GCM. And he was like, I highly recommend you use both. I highly recommend you use both. And I'm sitting there going like, well, if you're using a pesticide and you're using a microbe that's supposedly killing the pest, I'm not sure how this is working. I'm a little confused. It seems like, you know, a little bit of a conflict of interest. And after finally going to the university and having his hour-long talk, which was about 5 seconds of really good information that he flipped through so quickly, we had to take pictures of the slides. It seems to me, our thought process, there was a few of us that stayed up late at night and kind of tried to pick this thing apart and figure it out, is that basically it's this particular bacillus species has metabolites of a bunch of enzymes, basically. So chitinase, gelatinase, I think there's some protolase or something else in there. I don't really remember. Again, we didn't actually get the information. We had to like take pictures of reports hanging on walls and try and blow them up and see what it actually said. So there was a lot of investigating that we did to try and, you know, get it dialed in. And the way that you're brewing it and the way that the whole thing goes down, I highly suspect that you're not actually applying any type of biology at all. You're just applying the enzymes that are a byproduct of the microbes and their metabolism, their metabolites. But again, we're just starting to delve into it. Basically, we went in October, and we did manage to bring some back to, you know, trial out. You have to brew it at 120 degrees Fahrenheit for 7 days. So it's pretty hot for quite a while. And he just had to propagate it at all. It was a big product push. It was a big point of, here's this really cool thing, and you should pressure your government into letting us import this from South Korea. And we were kind of like, that's ridiculous. Why don't you, if that's what you want to do, like, why don't you come to the United States and set up a propagation system here, and then you can sell your product that way instead of, I mean, transporting. You're talking to natural farmers who are, you know, very DIY and very like, let's pay attention to our carbon footprint, and you want to ship this stuff from South Korea. Like, it was just, a lot of us had a lot of problems with that.
Well, the permitting issue too.
Yes,
because
yeah,
we don't
there it
even
is.
know if that's here in the U.S. to be able to even import it, and because if it's not here, you can't have it here.
Right. And so this is the whole thing of like, you know, is this good? Is this bad? We have a bunch of different bacillus species that have similar actions. The way that the way this ties into KNF, which I found really interesting, is the way that he found this was he actually did an IMO collection out in the woods in Korea. They brought back their collections and they went through and they isolated every single microbe and fungi that they found up there, or supposedly they did. And then they started trialing them all out and seeing which ones were what and what they did and how to use them. And so he is working with Professor Escalon at UC Davis. So he has authorization from the US through UC Davis to be studying this in the US. So that particular work, as far as studies are going, has already happened in Davis. But he really wants to, Professor Kim really wants to bring it to more people. And I'm still on the fence about it, honestly. I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but there was a lot of unanswered questions. He's like, oh, it's really great against root knot nematode. So like, here's these tomatoes that have no root knot nematode. And I'm like, okay, so it's killing your nematodes. So is it killing your beneficials also? We can assume yes. And he goes, oh, his answer to me was, don't worry about that. And I was like, no. You're not going to say, don't worry about that. I want an answer. Is this going to kill beneficial nematodes? And he's like, well, you're going to have to try it and find out. I'm like, that's a yes. That's a definitive yes to me.
I would be really skeptical on root knot nematode because especially, well, I mean, it depends on which species of plant parasitic nematode between like root knot, cyst, lesion, all them, because of the biology. And again, if this worked that well, why hasn't everybody been, because there's been published, I just Googled and there's been published papers for several years now on this. Why hasn't it? I mean, again, I don't know what the permit status is, if it's still in, because you can get permits to do research as long as you have it in quarantine. I don't know.
Right.
But usually that's more of a federal kind of thing. But if it worked that well on plant parasitic nematodes, why isn't it being used? I mean, that's kind of...
Yeah. And my suspicion from what we kind of gleaned was that it's hard to get information out of Korea. And I think that it more had to do with, so what Professor Kim admitted to us at the end was that he's actually sold the patent on this, whatever this is. I don't know if he's patented
he probably patented the rearing system, not the actual microbe and the technology,
right,
how it's reared. That's probably what he's done.
And that was my suspicion as well. But it was really hard to get solid answers when we were there. So I don't know if that's just because, it's still Korea and it is still, there's a lot of systematic stuff happening over there that's,
but
again, it's hard to get information out. So
again, there's lots of published papers, but you need to go through them and, look at how the work was actually done. Also find out where they're published to find out if they're, peer-reviewed journals or if it's a pay-to-publish journal, where you can, look like you're a published author, but you're just paying to get your stuff published.
Almost all of, I couldn't find anything that wasn't written. The majority of it is written by the Cheongdam University or through them or through their professors, which is Korea. So again, I just, we were there for a week and it was very light on information and very heavy on, look at all these amazing farmers. These farmers are so profitable. These farmers are so happy. Look at how happy these people are. Look at how much more productive. And it was the statistics they were giving us, if they were true, and we got to talk with the farmers themselves, it was pretty impressive. I mean, they call it chives, but it didn't look like a chive to me. It was a flatter leek type of, I don't know, it's some type of Korean chive, I guess, or Korean leek. They called it garlic, then they called it leeks, then they called it onions, then they called it chives. I'm like, well, okay, so it's in that family, obviously, but we don't really know what that plant is. But this particular farm grew that plant, and they went from being able to have one plant for 2 years to being able to not have to, turn the beds over for 4 years. So they doubled the lifespan of the plant. And instead of harvesting like 4 times a year, they were able to harvest 8 times a year. And that went from, and they still used pesticides, but they added the GCM to their regimen every 10 days through the drippers. They're feeding the roots. And I mean, I don't know. Again, for me, what we came back with was a lot of like, okay, anybody who has this and wants to trial it out, like we have to do this in the right way, which means you have to get your soil biology tested before you start using it. You have to, pay attention to this and do a small little area and make sure it's quarantined, like Suzanne said. And that not many people got any. So, most of us are just kind of like sitting there looking at these bags going, or at least I am. But I want to try and do some quarantined areas and make sure that it's on, like, I still haven't figured out the protocol yet. That's why I haven't played with it, because I don't want to get this everywhere if it's not something that's already here. And if it's already here, then why is it special? It's this whole,
Yeah, well, because it's, because it would fall under EPA regulations
Yeah.
because of the claims. And so in order to be used, it would have to have an EPA registration number inside of the United States to
Right.
be used
Right.
legally.
And that's what Professor Kim is pushing. That's what he wants, is he wants all of us to figure out how to allow the U.S. government, how to push the U.S. government to allow him to import it to get all this stuff. And I'm like, you're talking to the wrong group of people for this.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the thing is he needs to come up with the money. He's got to pay researchers to trial it here. They've got to check to see if, again, the survey to see if it's here or not, because you do not want to introduce a new microbe to a non-native environment. I mean, everybody always jumps up and down about the insect stuff. Well, you need to watch microbial stuff too. Also, you don't know if it's pure. You don't know what else is in there. And that's something that the researchers would test to make sure that other pathogens or things aren't hitchhiking with. And then he just has to apply for an EPA registration. And it would probably be a bit more fast tracked because it is a bacillus species. But I mean, if he doesn't know that's what he needs to do, then I kind of discount everything he says, because anybody could just Google how to register pesticide. I mean, it's
right. No, he's doing that, and he's, like I said, I mean, he's already working with UC Davis, and he's kind of so for me, I've been talking with HSU a bit and trying to see if Humboldt State University is interested in trying some of this stuff out, or seeing what it is, or doing the necessary research. Again, there's a potential there, but I don't know how comfortable. And again, the thing is, I don't know that he doesn't know this information, because I'm a female. It was very hard for me to get any information. I got a lot of like, don't you worry your pretty little head type of, feedback. The guys were just like, oh, here, go schmooze with these big wigs from whatever, the largest, so the pesticide companies are run by the government there. So that was an interesting, or fertilizer, pardon me, the fertilizer company. So, the guys were kind of put into little groups with the CEOs of the fertilizer company to schmooze. And there was a lot of weird socialism stuff and, interesting politics that as a female, I was not invited to the table to speak to these people about. As a female, I was not invited to the table to talk about a lot of this stuff. When I asked pertinent questions, I got, a lot of like, oh, aren't you cute, little girl? So, or it felt that way to me.
Yeah,
admittedly, I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder. So I know that I'm bringing my own subjective views to that, and probably letting that color what was happening a little bit more than it really needed to. But there was, again, it was just, I felt like there was a lot of unanswered questions by the time we left. I think there is potential there. But again, for me, what really came back to was like, I'm like, wow, well, if this came from, his IMO collection up in the woods, then, I mean, we should just be doing that, because I'm sure we have similar stuff up in our woods. And I mean, that is what we do. So, so Suzanne knows that we had a fungus that killed all of our root aphids. So that got sent to
it's at Cornell.
It's at Cornell now?
Yeah, yeah. I'll talk to you about that later. But yeah, it's because they have to do genetic testing on it. And that's why it takes so long. It's not like you can just look at it under a microscope and be like, oh, it's so-and-so. You have to do genetic testing on it to figure out all the specifics on it. And, so that's what's going on now. So go ahead.
So that's, but that's exactly kind of where my brain goes, is that, like, if we're culturing and preserving our indigenous microorganisms that are already here, the chances that, the bacillus species, when you look into them, a lot of them have very similar metabolites. They're really, the gelatinase and chitinase and all these things, some of them are more productive than others. This particular species appears to have a high level of those. I don't really know that it's not something we can't find in our own backyards already here, maybe not at those same levels, but having that diversity and not introducing something from Korea into our environment without knowing what in the hell we're doing, which is what concerns me. So UC Davis is working on it. I'm happy to let them continue their research and wait and see kind of what's going on. And if I can figure out a protocol that I feel comfortable that's going to be very, very isolated, or if I am talking with HSU and I can figure out a protocol with them and they're willing to talk with him and, you know, do this whole thing like UC Davis is doing, then having more than one university studying this could be beneficial as well. But, you know, as time has gone on, I've kind of turned more to, we have things that we know are safe. There, you know, you can make your own Jadam pesticide solutions. There's a sulfur solution that's easy to make. There's a wetting agent that's super cheap and easy to make. You can make herbal solutions, and those seem to be extremely effective for at least the foliar bugs. So if things get out of control, you have an option there that is, you know, a cheap and easy solution. I loved Sufoil X. Sufoil X is, for me, it was hugely effective, but Dragonfly Earth Medicine doesn't want us using it because it's a petroleum product. So last year we basically had to start doing some side-by-sides and figuring out what our other options would be so that we don't risk that certification, because I do feel it's important.
Yeah, well, I'm glad they don't drive automobiles and use petroleum or use any plastics in their life.
Or fly.
Or ship their products anywhere across the planet that uses petroleum to get it there. I'm glad that, you know, this one tiny byproduct of the petroleum industry can't be used. I mean, I can't even.
And yeah, no, and there's, I'm working on subtly seeing if we can, you know, have that changed. But
well, and
in
I
the
was
interim,
going to say,
I mean,
part of the reason that it's coming back up is because everyone's getting their asses handed to them with the bang aphid. And you know, in California, I fortunately haven't seen the bang aphid myself, knock on wood. But you know, and that's what I was going to ask Suzanne to speak on that. I know I'm just not taking anything in ever anymore. I got seeds and I make seeds, and that's the fucking deal. I got everything I need. And if someone wants to give me something, I'm happy to take it in seed form. But yeah, so Suzanne, when you talk about the bang aphid and just, you know, yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to do that, but I thought we were talking about what we're going to talk about at the meeting too.
Okay, yes too, but okay, go ahead. Talk about what you want to talk about.
Well, no, I was just going to say, because for people that have come before this year, I'm going to focus a bit more on what are the new pests and what we know now that we didn't know last year, including more information on the cannabis aphid. And I'm also going to focus more on application methods, because I'm seeing people just getting once they finally do get the right species of biocontrol agent, they're not putting them out correctly because there's not a lot of good information on biocontrol applications and talking about how you apply the different kinds of biocontrol agents, how many release points do you need, you know, those kinds of things. But the thing with the aphid, I mean, I think the problem is people don't scout well enough, and then they wake up one day and their numbers are extremely high. Yep. Because again, people are not focusing, people are not doing enough preventative programs for the biocontrol, for the pests in cannabis. They're waiting till they have an explosion, and then that's when I get the, you know, the call, the message, the text, the Instagram message. And with the aphid, we've been, you know, collecting parasites, and there are multiple parasites that seem to be hitting it, but there also seems to be some geography involved with that. And we can't figure out why. You know, certain parts of the country, we're seeing some other parasites species than other parts. Now, we have some samples out of the middle-ish part of the United States, I'll say, that we're getting a species ID on the parasites that hit it there, because there hasn't been a lot of collection necessarily on the east coast of the US, because it hasn't been as bad on the east coast. And I think, again, because growers tend to be more isolated on the east coast, and they don't share plants as much as they do out on the west coast, because again, that's how it gets spread around. But, you know, aphids are actually pretty easy to kill with just an insecticidal soap, but it's getting contact and having the right spray equipment. And I think, again, if people still don't have necessarily good spray equipment or understand good spray coverage, I think that there's these papers, the water sensitive papers that they're these cards and they're yellow. They kind of look like sticky cards, but when you get moisture on them, they turn blue. And so what we do to teach growers to spray is we hide these out on the crops, have people spray, and then they can come back and see what kind of spray pattern they're getting, what their droplet sizes are, to understand, if you're getting several large splats, you're not getting a good fine mist in what you need. Because again, I don't think with soaps and oils, they will kill aphids if you get good contact on them, but I don't think people are spraying good enough to prevent the problem. And then also just
Suzanne,
misidentifying things.
Are you gonna cover proper scouting techniques as well?
If you would like me to, Wendy, I'd be glad to do that just for you.
Oh, somebody needs to, because I think
Yeah,
I've talked with people and they're like, oh, this is how I do it. I'm like, no, but common sense says that that's not. But I realized there's a lot of people like to have things laid out very systematically. Like, you do this every Monday, like this.
Yeah, and scouting is almost something that when I do scouting workshops, we like to do on site at a facility to talk about patterns and things. And it's something that almost has to be you can give basic stuff, but it almost has to be developed for each different facility. We're actually doing this summer at the Cultivate show. We're actually going to be, I'm teaching a full day workshop there, and we're actually going to go out to a greenhouse in the morning, and we're going to talk about technologies in pest management and how you can use them, because there's more of this scouting software that's coming online, and actually how to use the digital microscopes, and then how to store that information, and how to get help, and going over, how you do scout and how you do sample out there. Because that's the other thing, people don't know how to actually collect insects for getting proper identification. So we're going to be doing a lot of that. But again, that's an on-site kind of thing, which is a bit harder to do in a classroom style setting there. But we are going to do for the second half classroom style, because we're going to do an insect pest ID class where we're going to have live specimens with microscopes and everything, and going over all of that. So.
And that's the Cultivate show in Ohio?
Yes.
Is that where it is usually?
Yep, it's in Ohio every year.
I always just have a steady diet of the lacewing cards, the egg cards, because that is like one of the cheapest things. And I don't know if that's just like a dumb thing that I've just run across. Like, they're so cheap to put out. And
I love the lacewing egg cards, but again, if you have a massive problem, that's not going to fix your problem.
Right.
I have my people on preventative programs. You just get them and put them out every 2 weeks, and you need to start in propagation. If you're in flower, you're covered in aphids, that is not going to save your butt, and that's the problem. People are being reactive, not preventative. And they got to work on the IUD too.
California's been really difficult just because there's no money. There's no money anymore. So the whole idea of putting out predators every 2 weeks, there's a few people probably that have the money for that, but most people at this point, they're raising taxes again in January. It's insanity. We figured out, I sat down and did some rough calculations, and the farmer gets about 2% of the end retail cost. And that's before deductions, tax, or any taxes to ADE, all of that. So people talk about, well, a normal business works with this, 3 to 5% profit margin. And I'm like, yeah. And cannabis in California is at 0.5 for the cultivator, maybe.
Well, the one advantage you have is having some of the insectaries in California. So you guys don't have as astronomical of shipping. I mean, my guys in the East Coast get killed on shipping costs. And also the lacewing cards are very inexpensive, and in not crazy hot times of the year and not cold times of the year in the northern part, they don't even have to ship them overnight. The eggs can go second day. So shipping can be lower on those eggs, and a sheet of them, what, Josh, maybe 25, 30 bucks.
I can't remember. Yeah, it's cheap.
Yeah,
it's cheap. And I mean, that's a cheap insurance policy.
Yeah. The cards are great. I actually talked with a friend of mine who ordered a bunch of lacewing larvae in a jug through a secondary distributor, and they came, there was nothing in it. And he spent he was sick at the time. He was like, is this it? Is this it? And I was like, dude, you're showing me like carrier material and that looks like a dead something. It's black. I can't even tell what it is. I'm like, there's no larva in that. So that's the other thing I think that people mistake is that, you know, and this is, Suzanne, since I met you, actually, that was the first thing I learned about was like, oh, get it drop shipped directly from the insectary and make sure you've got the right insectary and check your bugs and make sure they're alive. And, you know, all of this becomes super hyper important and people get really discouraged and disgruntled when they, you know, spend $1,000 on lacewing larvae and they show up and there's nothing there.
Yep.
You know,
Well,
and then they're putting out like
guess,
all the predators at the same time. And I'm like, well, I think that's not right either. Like, I always go back to my notes to be like, okay, you don't put this out with this because they eat each other and you don't do this and this. And so, yeah, the lacewing cards are great. I like them. They're easy to use. They're cheap, like you guys are saying. I don't know that that's enough for cannabis.
Well, it's not going to prevent
No.
all your problems, but talking about the aphid issue, I mean,
Right.
because that's their primary food source.
And 3/4 of the cannabis issues they take care of. I mean, thrips, you know, they take care of a lot of things.
They take care of
help.
a lot of things, and they'll stop a lot of things from getting started.
Right.
It's
Mhm.
like, you know, everybody's okay with doing preventative sprays, but they're not okay with doing preventative releases. I mean, you'll come in and it's okay to spray compost tea every week, but oh God, we can't spend the money on releasing bugs every week. I mean, what's the difference? It's being preventative.
Right. And I guess that was my point, that the lace wings are so cheap that, like, you know, putting a
Yeah.
mini sachet tag with cucumaris and uh, all of them on there, it's a lot when you have 3 to 4 tags on a plant, you know, every 2 weeks. It costs a lot of money. It's a lot of effort, and I don't have the money, period. So it's just, you know, that's what I was saying. The lace wings are the one thing that is cheap, that if you're going to have to like skimp on some things, that's in my deal, that's kind of one thing I don't skimp on.
So
How,
Suzanne, somebody asked me this and I didn't have an answer. I was like, I don't know. So we have apparently a native brown lacewing.
Yeah.
And they're like, if you're putting out the greens, are you like messing up the, you know, the balance between our native brown lacewings? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much impact one would have on the other.
Do you drive your car to work and kill 1,000 bugs a day hitting with your windshield and have an impact?
No, I don't drive.
Well, you know what I mean. I know. Well, I commuted to my sofa, but you know, the thing is the big picture of things. It's not, and generally you don't find brown lacewings, and I've never found them together out in the ecology. It's interesting because I tend to find like my brown lacewings on my pines, and also the brown lacewings, the adults are predatory, and I tend to see those a lot later. I saw a lot in late
Right.
summer this year, East Coast, California, up in British Columbia. I posted that one little video of the hotel of the brown lacewing eating, but I generally don't see them together occupying the same niche. And also generally, if you have a high aphid population, there's plenty of food for everybody, because because the aphids are so reproductive. And you see lacewing larvae in there, you'll see ladybug larvae, you'll see the parasites, you see adult ladybirds, you see all kinds of stuff out there. And generally, most of the lacewings you release end up starving to death and dying anyhow, because there's not enough food for them. Generally,
how do they raise them? What's the process?
So they actually raise them because they're highly cannibalistic. They actually have to be put in individual cells, because they put an egg in a cell and they drop a food in there, because there is an artificial diet that's been developed for them, but you can also feed them like a festia eggs, which is a moth egg. And then they live in these little cells until, they hatch, they start eating, and then they take them out of the cells and put them in bottles. And that's why the larva is expensive, because the labor involved with doing all of that. Where they're very prolific egg layers, so when you have adults flying around and you have all those eggs, it's easy to scrape those eggs off and slap them on a card and just sell them that way. But because
how come they don't do the brown lacewings? Why is it always the greens?
Okay, so in the U.S., there's no permit for them. Oh, hi, Chris.
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. There's no permit for them, and they do have them in Canada, but the markets never really taken off. I think part of the problem is because they do fly, that they can leave so easily, because when you put out lacewing larvae, they have to stay on your crop. And so they're not going to fly away, where if you put flying insects out, like ladybugs, poof, they're gone. And so it's a more guaranteed way you're going to get feeding on them. I see everybody's heads nodding, all three of you.
Did I miss the conversation on with Bubble Man?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't able to schedule. So we just we're recording on my channel, and then I'm going to post it up when we're done here. But yeah,
awesome.
welcome to the show. We were just kind of just talking about what's new in 2020 for the conference, and what everyone will be speaking and talking about that's different.
Nice. And
so yeah.
We're going to grow lace wings in people's brains next, right? We're going to use human hosts for predatory insects.
Sure.
It's really why we're inviting you to this conference.
So yeah, what's up with you, Chris? What have you been up to?
Last month was a big travel month. Was in Thailand a couple times, working with community developers, people working all over Southeast Asia, basically with poor farmers. And then the second trip was we trained 50 community developers in Myanmar, just agricultural techniques to support their local communities. And that was sweet. Such a sweet culture, the Burmese culture. So that was super special, and got a bunch of people reaching out to me in Burmese, and I have to use Google Translate to figure out what they're asking about agriculture, etc. So that's fun. And
so was it was it similar to like your 5-day training?
Yeah, it was shorter. Both of them were shorter, but it's introduction to the concepts, and then directing them to resources online that they can access for free. It was fun.
Cool.
Yeah, and then spoke in China for our industry, macadamia nut industry research symposium. There was a really cool article that just came out of Japan, and got to present that and just share with. It was all scientists, so it was a room full of a couple hundred scientists from all over the world, and a lot of. You would have loved it, Suzanne. We spent like a half day on insects, and I was almost. I was actually kind of depressed at the end of it because it was all talking about the problem and not a lot of solutions. So I was like, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee or something and take a break from this look at the disasters that happen in the macadamia nut industry. But
they have to you have to understand the problem thoroughly before you can come up with a solution. And I think that's, understand the biology and all that. So yeah, it is depressing at first, but then usually, give it a year or two, then the solutions will come behind.
And that's really where the industry is. There's so much really cool kind of cataloging and unwrapping their heads around the problems, more so than I think the macadamia nut industry's ever had. So that was it was exciting, but it was also after seeing all, but it was cool. It was a lot of really minds and fun to talk with. I think I was the only non-PhD in talking at the conference, so that was a little intimidating, but also fun because they were excited about the topic. Yeah, and for the conferences, I'm excited for the Regen conferences to be able to kind of go deeper in helping people, wrap their heads around inoculating with beneficial microbes and getting their own indigenous cultures going. I think IMO, the whole kind of 4-step process of the indigenous microorganism is one of the things people so much, and it's I think it'll be really cool to just spend some time kind of taking people through the things that go wrong, the things that you can do well, and helping them become proficient at kind of owning that on their own farm. So I'm excited this year for that to be the focus on the natural farming side. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, I find that that's like, online on Facebook a lot, where we talk about KNF on Facebook a lot. And that's like the response I see coming out of you, me, and Wendy every time is just like, oh yeah, you need IMO. It's not an FFJ game, labs game. Like, in my mind, those are like these things that I can use to bump up plant nutrition, if I've failed in the root zone, essentially. Because my crop is so short term, it's not like I'm growing a full season of peppers that I can spray, throughout the fruiting cycle. I have to stop spraying as soon as we start into flower. So it just really is a vegetative tool for me.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that's funny, Josh, because I literally this morning somebody was asking, well, why use FPJ and LAB instead of compost teas? And I was like, well, it's not I think that this is the basic problem I see over and over again with KNF, is that people are thinking and myself included, like at the beginning, I was like, oh, FPJ, that's easy. Okay, cool. I have no idea what I'm doing. And, here's this other one, and that's great.
Well, it's really fun to make. I was just saying, it's really fun to make.
And
yeah.
It's hard to stir it up. But it's not really what, for me, after, a few years of this now, of doing it right, it's, what I'm realizing is that, the fundamental basics of KNF is the bottom line of your IMO and getting your soil, everything. There's an 80-20 principle in everything we do. And if you put your energy into something that encompasses 80% of everything else, then your 20% is, the thing that you add on later. And so for me with KNF, I'm like, 80% is your IMO. 80% is getting your soil to that balance. 20% is all the rest of the inputs, OHN, LAB, all of that. And that's just, for me, how I've figured out where it comes from on our farm. I did not do maintenance sprays weekly. I didn't do any of that. And I was talking with Chris a while ago, and I was like, I don't know about this KNF on my home garden. I have food rotting all over because it's so prolific. I can't get to it. And that was
too much production is a good problem.
Soil. Yeah, I think that's exactly your response. That's a good problem to have. I'm like, oh, it's killing me. There's food everywhere.
I don't know where to stack all these dollars I'm making.
That's next year. That's 2020.
Yeah, but it is harder. The whole like FPJ, LAB, these are really, as far as on-ramps to being able to make some of your own inputs, those are easy and really accessible. IMO, there's this nuances I'm sure you guys are well aware of now. There's this nuance that makes it a little more challenging, and I think it's a little intimidating for people to jump into, knowing that, or having some failures and just saying, oh, well, I can't do it. So yeah, hopefully this year at the Regen conferences, getting people some tools and demystifying, this process a little bit so people feel confident to give it a try. And yeah, it's literally the strength of natural farming. If you have this diverse microbial life, then the nutrients become this thing that you get to feather on and boost growth with, but they're not, if you don't do it, like you were saying, Wendy, if you don't put on the nutrients, you're still, you got this gangbuster growth, and you're able to produce a crop with very little. For us with trees, here come the geese. For us with trees, we're getting all this production and growth, and we do so much less than our industry expects you need to do as far as nutrition, because we're getting it from the soil's kind of engine at full speed. Yeah, so that'll be fun. And so we have people in each state or each place we're going to do a regen conference. They're going to prep IMO so we can see the stage in process. We're going to get our hands into some hot IMO piles, and I don't think we'll take a bath in it, but maybe we can stick our feet in it. What do you think, Suzanne? You up for a foot spa?
No. Believe me, I've stepped on enough warm, squishy things barefoot. I don't need to do it.
How does it work if we get everyone's feet in the, like, oh, our microbes are gonna overpower the IMO?
No. We'll make sure it's nice and active. Yeah, if anybody has toe fungus, it'll go away one treatment. It's we've got 100% success rate so far.
For treating for toenail fungus?
Yep.
So that's an extra $20 charge if you want to come and get your toenail fungus cured.
And if you want to be buried, then we'll have to talk. Yeah, it's by order only.
Oh.
It's so nice.
It's really nice, Suzanne. I don't know what you're envisioning, but it actually smells like bread and like the forest. So it's a very like pleasant, IMO 3 and IMO 4 is awesome.
I don't do, and my husband will tell you, I don't do well with any kind of fungal things. I have a little bit of a squeamish factor on, like if there's mold on any kind of food, I'm not touching it. It's his department to have to deal with it. I just have this thing.
Do you
I
consume
can understand that. I can understand that with being somebody who's looking at the effects of bug bites and all the fungus that's growing out of the rotting fruit and plants. I get it. I understand, but that's only looking at the diseases.
Yeah. I don't know. It just, no, I know there's good. Believe me. In fact, I don't know. I now that you said that, I was dreaming about penicillin last night for some reason.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
that's totally normal.
Totally
Well, I was dreaming about growing your own penicillin off of bread and fruit for some reason. And why didn't people just eat the mold back then? But I'm thinking, no, you need to inject. I totally forgot about that until you just said that. I don't know what made me think about that. Or dream.
Yeah, that's like grandmaster nerd status. I dream about penicillin and
Not just any mold, penicillin specifically.
Yeah, penicillin. And I could see it in the dream.
Solving the world's problems in my dreams.
Yes. Well, got to start somewhere. So.
Awesome.
All right. Josh, you have anything else for us? Because I have candy making to get to.
Yeah, we can let you go. Thanks for coming on, and super excited to see you in Humboldt.
Yes. Well, I'll be coming down.
We haven't announced it. It's going to be at the same spot, so everybody knows. Everybody in all four, and everybody else, and it's going to be at the same spot as last year.
That was a great venue.
Yeah, it was a great venue. We looked at other spots because we wanted to have more room for growth, but it just wasn't going to happen. There's not anything available. We looked at Arcata, without going to basically the same place the Emerald Cup is, and so it didn't make sense because I'd rather stay like in that area, Redway, Garberville. The community there has supported us, and so Season's actually the one who kind of does the bulk of that part of the work. And so,
well, I'll be coming there from Vancouver because I still have to go. Even though unfortunately your event is not happening, I have another one that I'm going to be going to. But I'll remember to BYOC, bring my own Coke again this year. Because it was really hard to find soda. So I will bring mine with me again.
I'll bring some mac nuts or chocolate covered mac nuts to share.
Oh, and that's right. Apparently I've been roped in now to bring some of my candy with me too.
Yeah, I'm figuring that we'll do a barter system. I want some of this this root beer hard candy.
Yeah, the little acorns. Yeah, we're going to work on the machine today. Because we're having some engineering issues because, again, these machines are from 1871 and can be a little challenging to work with sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, All right. Well, I'm going to go do that. And my cat is going to say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, kitty.
Bye-bye. And
Bye.
are you guys staying on? Don't have fun.
Oh, we lost you.
Oh.
Don't have fun without you. Is that what you were saying? You're silent.
Muted.
We can't hear you. Did you mute yourself? Your cat muted you. See, that's what cats are good for.
It was the cat. Nope. Bye.
All right. Well, yeah. What else you guys got to talk about? I was hoping Kevin was going to pop on, but it looks like he got busy.
Yeah.
Not surprising.
Adventures in natural farming. You guys want to go to Myanmar right before the conference?
Yes. So bad.
Yes.
Yeah, train
I
some
fit in a
coffee.
large suitcase. I lost some weight. I can actually fit inside my suitcase. So I'll
I got
pay
a
the
big
overage
suitcase.
fee. Yeah, I have one too. Like I'll supply my own suitcase. I'll bring my own bottle of water.
That's only
and
$25. That's easy.
Yeah, right?
No, but seriously, going into deep into northern Myanmar, and there's coffee farmers. There's a community developer there, and she has partnered with the coffee farmers there to get them a good price. She got their stuff labeled fair trade and organic, and so we're going to go do a training for 5 days for their teams, their community development team, and then we'll do a orientation day for 500 coffee farmers. A lot of it, it's funny, I'm talking to her, and the coffee farmers in that area for generations have grown opium too. They just grow whatever the traders will pay the most for. So she's kind of like, well, it's kind of funny. I'm talking to them about coffee, and then they also want help marketing their opium. She's like, I'm not really into that, as an international NGO, she can't market their opium, but yeah, it'll be fun, I think, going in, and that'll be the 22nd through 28th, so it might be kind of tight if you're prepping for the conference, Josh, but
I would love to. That would be super fun. Like my I mean, you guys know my 3 things, and that drive me are coffee, weed, and beer. Straight up.
Well, maybe I'll just have to bring some back. That'll give you the benefit.
Leave the opium there, though.
Okay. Yeah, international travel and coffee is probably not the best mixture.
Probably not a good idea. My dad used to grow opium poppies back in the day.
Nice.
I won't say whether he does or not anymore. I don't know.
Cool.
Well,
yeah, that'll be fun.
Well, I think we can wrap up here. I just wanted to tag on a couple things, in reference to the conference. This year we're going to add a breeder's booth area.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we'll have like kind of a separate area where we have a handful of breeders set up, and we'll be there all weekend, and it'll dual purpose as a place that people can kind of go smoke and chill and talk with speakers and with the breeders, and then also I think just having folks behind the booth all weekend will create it's a lot different when you're standing in line to buy seats from somebody and there's someone behind you and you want to ask a couple quick questions versus like taking a break and want to come over and that guy's not doing anything. You can really ask some questions and bullshit and really the speakers, as soon as they're Chris, as soon as you're done speaking, everyone just wants to pull you aside and talk, and that's it'll be a good creative opportunity for that.
Yeah, I just resigned my kind of 9-to-5 position, so this round of regeneratives, I'm looking forward to being able to hang out, come early and leave late, and really get to talk more. I felt bad kind of being in and out for especially Ann Arbor. So yeah, definitely going to hang around. Those are sweet conversations, and watching Wendy at the seed exchange, talking to people and giving the download, and just the excitement that happened around those tables. It's like watching my kids run into a candy shop and pick out their taffy. You know, it's pretty amazing. So yeah,
Are you gonna bring any seeds of your own this year?
Bring seeds? I could bring macadamia nut seeds,
Yeah.
but you need subtropical weather to grow them. So I don't know.
That doesn't stop us, man. We got this.
All right. Yeah, you can
We
grow
try
indoors.
anything.
Yeah, indoor. Nicely pruned macadamia nuts. That'd be pretty dope. I can bring some angelica seeds. I'll bring those, and that way I can participate in the tables.
Yeah,
won't be as
fun.
exciting.
Which angelica species?
Man, I have to look. It's from Korea. It's one of the ones they grow in Korea. So yeah.
You know, when we were there, we could not find angelica. We left with no angelica. Like,
seeds,
I mean, there was obviously
or root.
All of the above. I was
wow.
looking for Korean pasque flower seeds, couldn't find that, and we were hitting the all the national markets, or not national, but the traditional markets. And we got cinnamon. We got Jeff, actually, I think Jeff or Michael has my cinnamon and licorice. But when we got to the angelica, he brought out this huge book of all the herbs, and so we had to show him pictures, and we tried to find the Korean angelica, and it was just when we finally found the one he's like, oh no, we don't have that. And he had and then we're like, okay, well, what about this one? And nope, didn't have that one. And he ended up having one that we didn't recognize, so we just kind of at that point we'd been in this tiny little stall for an hour, trying to find which angelica it was. So
you got to go down to Goksan County for angelica purposes. They got a ton. They grow it there.
Good to know.
Next year.
Hey, Chris.
Possibly.
You just kind of announced. I kind of skimmed over it, but you just announced that you resigned from your 9 to 5. What do you want to talk about? What you got going on, or are you there? Do you have plans yet?
Yeah, the goal or the end for me, I'm kind of sorting all of that out in my head. The end goal is to be able to do more of this third world activity, and so a not-for-profit that the total cliche 1-for-1, as we do trainings in the US and consulting stuff, then you kind of using that in conjunction with the not-for-profit to give it away in Cambodia and Myanmar and some of these places in Africa that we're going. That's kind of what we're going to be up to is kind of building and forming that.
Are you saying if someone comes and takes one of your classes here in the US, that it's like the Tom's thing, you're buying a course for someone? Cool.
Yeah, it's going to directly impact farmers in some of these places that Wendy and Josh, you weren't there, Josh, but this guy came from India this year to Boise, and he's like, all my farmers are killing themselves and I need to give them hope, and I'm going back to share this and going to support someone like him and kind of doing some of this work and kind of tying it in. So as we have this, this boom of productivity and benefit we're getting from natural farming, that we also culturally show and create a way where we're stewarding it, taking the knowledge and sharing it with the world, kind of in opposition to how we've as a nation have done agriculture and agricultural aid. So yeah, we can make money in farming here, and want to continue that turns the wheel, but also taking that knowledge and sharing it. So yeah, that's what we'll be up to. I don't have all the answers of what that looks like, but yeah, it'll be for the first time probably ever, I'll be committed to sharing. So you'll probably see a whole lot more in the free videos on YouTube and stuff that, you know, I've never had time for. So that'll be fun.
And then, I mean, you were, you know, inviting us to come along to Miramar. Is that the plan, is to you know, I see that I wasn't there this summer at the Boise thing, but you guys are throwing around the term soil smiths, and yeah, do you want to explain that, or is that the kind of the idea?
Yeah, so a lot of you guys that have gone through this training and then really worked with it, become proficient at using it. That idea of a soil smith and a network of soil smiths, kind of the credibility of being vouched for, or you know, being able to say, hey, these people know what they're doing. So that is the idea of soil smith. And then the idea of stewardship is kind of this, for me, I mean, this is just, you know, how it works in my heart is this concept of giving it away, or taking the knowledge and sharing it with those who can't pay for a class or be there. Yeah, so kind of inviting people on that road of stewardship. If, you know, it's kind of like, you know, putting people to work that have all this knowledge, like you and Wendy, you know, and so many other people that have really taken the time to wrap their head around the concepts and put them into practice, and say, hey, come along with me to, you know, Uganda as we go and work with this, you know, mothers and children survivals of AIDS farm that, you know, this guy Paul is working with. And, you know, we go then and do top-notch training and create a natural farming lab for them. And you know, basically your work, though you didn't get paid for it, slavery here. I'm trying to create international slaves of U.S. people, and so that we can give it away to those that really could benefit. I mean, they're going to eat because we go and share with them how to grow food in a more sustainable way, or a productive way.
You get to go on a vacation. You get to go on a vacation that means something. You get to go on a vacation that actually you walk away from feeling like you've become a better person, rather than, you know, somebody who got to sit on a beach for a week. I'll take either. I mean, they both sound good, but
they both sound good. Yeah, but one, we put you to work and you leave with lifelong friends overseas that now say, hey, you did this for our family, for our community, and you know, there's a generational benefit. So yeah, kind of those two concepts together, you know, not stopping the work in the US and education, and really jumping in with farms, which I think you guys have been doing, and you know, jumping in with farms and really helping with their production, but then going overseas and doing the same thing but affording to give it away. So yeah, Wendy, if you want to go over to Myanmar, Josh, I think that would be crazy tight to be in Myanmar on the 28th and come back to Humboldt, but
yeah.
But yeah.
I'll talk. Let's talk a little bit later, Chris, because I'm actually very interested. I just need to look at calendars and things. And then Chris, I also pitched to him doing a 5-day intensive here in Humboldt County with another co-teacher, Michael, who's up in Washington. So Michael and I have been chit-chatting a little bit about that. And Chris, we should all sit down and talk. So we're gonna try and do a 5-day intensive, and maybe add in a little side caveat that's very specific for cannabis. So that's something that might be coming up this spring. We need to look at dates and things and figure out agendas, but I'm excited to keep moving forward with my KNF teaching, and be able to co-teach with Chris is like total blessing. I'm super, super excited.
It'll be fun.
So for anybody from Humboldt, that's an opportunity that you'll have, and maybe we'll be able to work it in as the first 5-day intensive that starts supporting the you know, the work of natural farming missions, basically, or natural farming teaching, and I don't know what you want to call it, but that leg of that idea.
Totally. Yeah, that'd be
I
a
don't like
blast.
using the word mission because people think it's very religious. And I'm like, for me, a mission is a drive. It's a force. It's a, it's not necessarily missionary work, but all work that you do out of a love of people and, that's helping people is
Philanthropy.
mission.
Philanthropy. Yeah, no, love motivated. Yeah, love motivated.
Yeah.
What's the goal? What did you get out of it? Well, nothing that I could set before you on the table. But no, we loved people well, and there was no strings attached. Yeah, that's mission, being on mission to change the world.
Yeah.
The mission being to show another way. Yeah, totally.
So just to throw a plug out there, how do people, I know I'm trying to lose it. Shit. So how do people contact you and support you? I know you have stuff online where people can pay and support. I don't know what all that stuff is.
I've been terrible at that in every way up to this point, that people can know what's going on or be a part of it, and so hopefully that increases. I get a little better at that. But as it is, I have one online class that hopefully before the end of the year gets finished. People have been taking it, and I've promised that the kind of second half of it goes on, which is a lot of Q&A being answered, and then a general introduction, a further introduction to the concept. So that's the nutritive cycle. It's kind of an introduction to the nutritive cycle, which is kind of how to apply the nutrients properly. Not the IMO component, though the IMO's in there, but really that so many people are just kind of winging it with FPJ, and so this takes people through the process of how to observe your plant and apply the right nutrient at the right time. That's online. People can buy that. That's huge support for what I'm up to and our family. But going forward, yeah, hopefully there's a whole network that and that's the idea, that you guys are on there, have profiles, and people can kind of be knowing who these people are that have really wrapped their head around these concepts and could help with those farming needs that people have. And yeah, so naturalfarming.co is my website, and you can reach out to me with inquiries or whatever at chris@naturalfarming.co.
Cool.
Thanks,
yeah,
Josh.
it's no, for sure, man. I mean, natural farming's been gaining a lot of steam. I've actually been contacted twice, ironically, from folks in Colorado that are trying to switch their facilities over or starting new facilities, and they want to do KNF model, and it's exciting. And these are people who aren't farmers. They're the CEOs that are hearing about it and going, this is what the direction I want my business to go. Who can you guide me to that can help me do that type of conversations? And so it's very exciting.
Awesome. Totally. Yeah. And it's exciting because you know what they're going to get out of it. You guys know, you're tasting it and seeing its effect in the producer's, reaction, or the processor's reaction to your products. And that's a big deal. You feel confidence grows.
Well, and part of it that I guess, and people get really distracted on FPJ and making these things, and it's because of the excitement of it. This one guy that we're working with, James in Colorado, he and his wife came out to your course this summer, and they got so excited about making the inputs, and that they're like it's a whole tangent of making the inputs, and it's a good tangent, and it's a good thing to be excited about, because you are, in fact, like, you're growing out microorganisms. You're understanding more about how the world, the earth, creates nutrients. When you're making an FPJ or making a lab, it's like all these things are clicking in my head, anyways, about how nature is doing this. That's
it. That part is the strength of it. Your natural farming is this on-ramp to understanding how nature does it, without man's, like, we go into the forest, or you go into find some wild fruit tree, and it's like the tastiest fruit, and you're like, how did this happen? Nobody's fertilizing this. And then all of a sudden with natural farming and going through this process, you're like, oh, I get it. Nature's really good at growing food if we can partner with it and bringing it into these grows like James in Colorado, and you know where he's, you know, where people are, and you guys, where you have a controlled environment, but you're actually letting nature and be involved in the production of your crop. It's pretty cool. I have fun with it anyway.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Yeah, and we're our macadamia nut company. We're going to have our own packaged product for the first time this year. This spring, we'll have the natural farming story on a package with our macadamia nuts. So yeah, that's been a long time coming and exciting for us. Make sure you get some of those.
Yeah, I got to try some in the car one time. You had a little handful left. They were delicious. Next level. It's like, you know, when you get to try, you know, if you don't live in a tropical area and you get to try citrus, you know, for the first time, it's like, whoa, that's what that's supposed to taste like.
Right. Not this thing that's been in a box for a month.
Yeah, I've never had fresh pineapple, and I wonder if I hate pineapple. I wonder if that would totally change if I had a real live living, you know, pineapple.
Oh yeah, totally. No, and a white pineapple. Those don't even make it out of Hawaii. But white pineapple is something I used to grow as a kid, and friends of mine grow on the Big Island, and it's a totally different experience.
Is it a variety?
Yeah, it's a variety. It's a more rare variety actually in general production, and it's amazing. A lot less of the like high acidity bite, but all the flavor. It's really good.
Nice.
Yep. Maybe I'll have to ship some of those out too.
Well, awesome, cool, guys. I'm just going to say thanks everyone for watching, and thank you guys for joining, and really look forward to seeing you all in Humboldt and everywhere else. So check the website out, regenerativeorganiccannabis.com.
Do it.